then that's fine. I'm all with David Sirota on this, but we will see. We got some receipts here. After a very good American Rescue Plan momentarily helped millions of people, that happened, and boosted Biden's standing among voters. Then Democrats cut off pandemic aid. They jacked up taxes on the working class. They stumped out a rail strike and didn't even help didn't put no demands on the rail barons. They expanded fossil fuel drilling amid the climate emergency. The Willow Project is worse than anything that Trump did. Part two of this, they demagogued the crime issue. And as the segment that we did a little earlier, Max, we see the Democrats are failing on calling out murder, especially if it's a black homeless person. They reappointed Trump's worker crushing Federal Reserve chair, all while abandoning the minimum wage and healthcare promises they made in 2020, spiked the football by bailing out Silicon Valley bank tech moguls while the government moved to force up to 15 million people off Medicaid. So Max, I get how you feeling about this. I totally respect your opinion, but I'm rolling with David Sirota on this one, Max. I think Democrats got a lot more work to do.
Oh, I agree with you on that. There's a lot of bridge building to do. I mean, a lot of the work here is going to be Biden convincing the left that this is actually going to result in something, because we've had a lot of words in the past from a lot of people and they seem to go away after the election. So if that's not the case, Biden's going to be in trouble.
Oh yeah, and ultimately, Max, it doesn't matter what you and I think or Sirota is absolutely up to the voters, as long as you ain't got Republicans rigging the pathway for voters. That is our time today on Boss. It was so absolutely wonderful to have you on the show, Max Burns, and we cannot wait to have you back. And for all of you who tuned in today, thank you so very much. All of the comments, everybody, just thank you so much for your support of the show and your support of the TYT network. Now, you know what I want you to do about this time. I always, no matter how daunting things look, no matter how bad it gets, I do want you to keep the faith. But with that faith, baby, you know what we got to do. We got to put some fight behind it. Until next time.
Welcome, friends. Welcome, family. What's up, Ma? Welcome to the watch list, you guys. It's a Thursday edition of the show. Glad you guys could join us. We had a bit of a spirited conversation as we jumped into the show, and now my mind is on certain things that I cannot say that now I kind of feel like saying. Glad you guys are here. Maybe I'll slip up as we go through this hour and go through all the news of the day. We've got, of course, some bad news off the top, some depressing news, some political news, of course, and off the back end, maybe we'll have a little bit of fun as we tail off on this Thursday. So to join me to go through all these things, we've got another Jackson and Jackson Thursday here. Jackson White joins me. He's Rebel HQ contributor. And a little bit of news that I'm not gonna let off in case you don't want everyone to know yet. But we've got a partner. What kind of partner?
A YouTube partner. Yes, my YouTube channel has officially become partner, which means we're about to start doing a whole lot more on there, including maybe selling some Jackson and Jackson merchandise. You know what I'm saying? For the Jackson Thursday, have some dreadlocks going all over the place. You feel me? Doing it like
we
that.
need the cursive writing. We need the white coats. Like we're officially some pharmaceutical. They make I don't even know what the hell they do anymore.
Johnson and Johnson. Like we selling baby powder, baby oil or something. But yes, no, definitely that's good news, and much due to the support of the TYT audience. So
absolutely, thank you guys also, and also congrats, brother. You deserve it. If I'm not on any of these new streams, I'm gonna be highly.
We gonna make it happen. We gonna make it happen because that's what I'm saying. One step at a time. Now that I've cleared this step, it's time to do many more things. So
absolutely. Let's jump into the many more things that we're gonna be doing today, Jackson. Of course, as I mentioned, we start off with some of the troubling news that's going on in the world. We talked yesterday about this now deemed a homicide that happened on a New York City subway with one unhoused individual and a former, I believe, Marine. More folks are catching on to it and more folks are appalled by it. Let's watch what's going down now.
It's really, really scary to watch poverty be engaged with in a violent way, to see how a lot of us are closer to homelessness than we are to being millionaires. And so to see someone be treated like that as a homeless person is scary for people who are unhoused. We're scary for people who are at risk of being homeless, whose rent is overdue, whose rent is being increased, whose shelter is the next step. So it's really, really scary in a city that is going through a housing crisis to see homeless people being murdered.
Stop calling the cops because someone's asking you for food and didn't even hurt you and you feel like you can take their life.
Protests are erupting in New York City. That is after Jordan Neely, the man that was murdered on the New York City subway, has been catching more attention. And as actually we're seeing that video get circulated, folks are sick of this stuff, especially with the response that has come from it, which we're gonna dig into those details. But first of all, one more other parts about Jordan Neely and who he was. Folks are upset because he was one of those folks that they saw on subways trying to find any way he could, as in this video here shows, trying to get some kind of cash or raise some kind of funds. He was also Michael Jackson impersonator as well. But when he went on that train and was complaining about being hungry, being tired of being hungry, thirsty, and looking for a place to sleep and sit down every once in a while, that's when the attack then jumped on him from some of those eyewitness reports. A little bit more though, because Marxist 777 pointed this out as well about his background and a bit of a clearer picture of who he was. On Monday, he said he was lynched on the New York City subway. He started telling passengers that he was fed up with being hungry, thirsty, and having no place to rest. Then he was, as he was shouting in that frustration, an ex-Marine, as I pointed out, then jumped on him and murdered him. Maybe some of the activity that's surrounding this is because AOC has gotten involved, and she was tweeting about this as well and how appalled she was to read this. She said he was also murdered, Jordan Neely was murdered, but because Jordan was houseless and crying for food in a time when the city is raising rents and stripping services to militarize itself, while many in power demonize the poor, the murderer gets protected with passive headlines and no charges. And it's disgusting. And she linked to that New York Times headline that we mentioned yesterday that talked about how somehow he got choked out by some unknown figure and happened to somehow pass away on that subway by himself. Who knows? She also talked about how these politicians have approached this stuff as well, and how they're not quick to really jump on and talk about what it is that happened. This in response to what the mayor of New York City also posted. She said, this honestly feels like a new low. Not being able to clearly condemn a public murder because the victim was of a social status some would deem, quote, too low to care about. Now, the last sentence is especially rich from an administration trying to cut the very services that could have helped him. And here's a piece of that that Adams put out. And that last sentence that she's mentioning is, he says, I need all elected officials and advocacy groups to join us in prioritizing getting people the care they need and not just allowing them to languish. How would that work? We're going to put some kind of funds towards helping folks avoid homelessness, or actually against the way that housing prices are on the rise and people are being exploited. And we actually give people reason to do things like this, and leads us to these types of problems. Now, those same folks that are part of the policymakers and everyone who leads us to these problems will complain about people like Jordan Neely being on subways scaring people by yelling about his situation and also his mental health issues there as well. But one other part here before you jump in here, Jackson, because as I mentioned, Eric Adams was talking about this, and he wasn't very happy with AOC's approach and also her criticisms of him. So as he was pointing this out, he said she was a little bit too soon to jump on this, and it's irresponsible to toss out these fire-breathing tweets that talk about the way our society treats unhoused, and also the way our politicians just don't give a hot damn about anybody. I think it struck a little bit too close to home for him, and he wants her to calm down with this whole thing. Here he is on CNN talking about it, and also doubling down on how much he thinks we should wait and see before we talk about how someone was murdered.
Each situation is different, and how a passenger, we have so many cases where passengers assist of the riders, and we don't know exactly what happened here until the investigation is thorough. And each situation is different. I was a former transit police officer, and I responded to many jobs where you had a passenger assist someone. And so we cannot just blatantly say what a passenger should or should not do in a situation like that. We should allow the investigation to take its course.
All right.
Jackson, we can't just tell people not to murder someone on the subway because you feel like you can. We can't say that. I thought we had laws that said that.
Well, Eric Adams has always kind of struck me as just kind of a strange guy, and that's kind of like his reputation. He's just kind of weird. Like whenever something happens, you can count on Eric to give just kind of a weird or unnecessary take. So that's just kind of what he does. But this story really points out the huge issue of homelessness in the country. Over 500,000 people who are unhoused, many of them facing mental health issues, as you pointed out, and also many of them who are in fact working. And a lot of the issues that this country faces are both easily fixable and unnecessary. I'm here in the NYC area, you're in the LA area. These are the two cities, two locations with the highest density of homelessness. And, when we look at these issues, what's a lot of the ways that we respond? Putting spikes under bridges, or, making it such that people can't sleep on benches, instead of creating, homeless shelters, instead of creating programs that can help people get themselves off of hard drugs like heroin and things like that, instead of improving the healthcare system. It pretty much every major issue that we have, we try to sweep it under the rug, but this wouldn't have happened, or it would have been a much less likely chance of it happening if he had resources accessible to him where he could sleep, or where he could just get a sense of peace. You know what I mean? So him dancing on the subway is just a normal part of New York life, a normal part of LA life. He's just a regular human being who got taken out for needing shelter, basically, nothing more.
And when our society finds folks in this situation, they get upset at them over it. Again, I've said it many times. The argument ends up being like, oh, you libs or whoever else. I won't even divide it amongst libs and conservatives. But you folks who have this bleeding heart for anyone else who's less fortunate, finds themselves in these types of situations, why don't you take one of them in? That's actually one of the comments that was posted under AOC's comments there. So, similarly, the way they said something to Bernie Sanders about how he's a millionaire and therefore how come he doesn't donate his entire money, and then therefore that'll fix the problems with our country and how we don't tax billionaires or anyone else that makes money, right? So that doesn't actually solve the problem. So AOC can take in 5 homeless folks, but there's not 5 homeless folks in New York City, there's tons. So if our society has to do something about it, we collectively have to do something. Now, if the reasons we won't say that is because then we'll have to give something would have to go into the system that actually helps people that are in these situations, which this is what they're leaving off. If those folks are helped out, our problems, our issues with having maybe things stolen, people are breaking into something, people with mental health issues scaring some people on these subways, there might be fewer of those people, or they might be in situations where they don't find themselves on a subway screaming and scaring at folks who don't know what's going on, or who would assume that this guy's coming to hurt them, and then leads to the individual who, by the way, hasn't been named, arrested, or anything else, to then jumping on his back and choking him out for 15 minutes, while everyone else goes, well, that's better because I feel better about myself, because that person who isn't worth their life can die in front of me now. That's the society that we've bred, and if you don't want to do anything about it, you shouldn't complain once someone says maybe we should do something about it.
And just real quick to add to what you were just saying about there needing to be both resources and action behind these types of issues, that just made me think of the fact that the Florida legislature just gave Ron DeSantis $12 million for the specific purpose to continue to bus and ship migrants to places like Martha's Vineyard in Washington, D.C. So, I mean, think about how petty and childish and wasteful that is. So, $12 million could go a long way for a community when it comes to issues like homelessness. It's just about the willpower. And obviously, we got to get the right people in office. It's a little more complicated than that. That's what it boils down to. But the money is there. We just got to make them spend it.
It's like paying workers. Then once folks have money, then it goes back into our system, and then maybe everyone else starts making this other money as well. But let's just demonize folks and go with the punitive approach instead. Okay, you guys, let's go to this next story. Speaking of punitive approaches to things, this is the result of all of these laws going across the country against women's rights, or birthing people's rights to abortion access. Let's go.
The Dorberts had two choices: leave Florida for a termination elsewhere, or take the pregnancy to full term. Even though it's legal to leave Florida to get an abortion, the Dorberts said they were scared they'd get arrested. So Deborah stayed pregnant.
I continue to feel this baby move, and knowing that I'm going to give birth and watch my child pass.
Her mental health suffered.
I really started having issues with depression and anxiety and just not wanting to get up out of bed.
As Caden grew more and more attached to his little sibling.
He continued to see my belly grow, and he continued to fill my belly, to feel the baby moved. And he kept getting excited that he was going to have a sibling.
The baby, a boy they named Milo, was born in March, and as the doctors predicted, his life was short. As Deborah held Milo in her arms, he gasped for breath and died in about an hour and a half. Deborah doesn't want to get pregnant again.
I couldn't go through another trauma like this with pregnancy.
Another example of the way that our conservative politicians across the country are showing their grace and mercy towards their constituents. Down in Florida, the Dorberts family here had to go through one of the most traumatic and life-changing experiences, as Deborah there was forced to give birth to a child that was doomed to die. I was told this by medical experts, but why listen to them? The circumstances that led them to this point and everything that they went through were startling, and they were detailed further. Let's watch.
At an ultrasound when Deborah was 24 weeks pregnant, the doctors had terrible news.
The baby has no kidneys, and you have little to no amniotic fluid.
The doctor said the baby was sure to be stillborn or die quickly after birth, and Deborah was at an increased risk of a potentially deadly pregnancy complication.
I broke down crying in the room.
It's a rare condition called Potter's syndrome. In many states, doctors offer to terminate such doomed pregnancies, and that's what the Dorberts wanted to do. But their doctors said it wasn't possible because of a Florida law passed last year that bans nearly all abortions after 15 weeks.
The moment the law came out, I think everyone was scrambling to try to figure out what exactly was that language intended to convey.
Doctors found in violation of the law can face heavy fines and even prison terms.
So that's the setup here. As then this woman, as you saw, was dealing with a life-threatening pregnancy, not only to herself, but also to her baby, as it was diagnosed that they had these issues. So of course, she was then forced to carry this baby to term. So while they were mourning the loss of a baby that then was created to be so much more traumatic than it normally would have been one of these God-fearing politicians that was a co-sponsor of one of these bills that made sure that the Dolberts were forced into this position. Her name was Jenna Persons Malika. And this is the way that she celebrated as they passed another one of these bills to restrict people's access to living their lives and actually not having to go through these traumatic situations. Let's look at the way she was acting.
Today we lead, today we stand for life. We stand with mothers and we stand with Florida families. And by your vote today, we change the culture of abortion to a culture of life.
Please clap moment there for Persons Malika. But still, she's very happy to bring this new approach to life instead of death. So what about this particular situation? Maybe she overlooks these types of things. She does have a heart, maybe some of her supporters may say. So what would she have to say as CNN reached out to her about this particular situation that you just heard about and the devastating trauma that this entire family has gone through?
When told about the Dorberts story, Florida Representative Jenna Persons Malika, a sponsor of the Florida abortion law, sent CNN this statement. We are providing mothers with the resources they need to raise healthy children, empowering doctors to help their patients make informed decisions, and shifting the conversation to valuing life.
Does that look like an answer to the question? Does that look like she's approached anything at all that had to do with the Dolberts and the situation that they're going through? Put it up, oh yeah, there it is, one more time. We're providing mothers with the resources they need to raise healthy children, are you? Empowering doctors to help their patients make informed decisions, no they're not. And also shifting the conversation to valuing life. The baby that I believe they named Milo died in Deborah's arms just over an hour after he was delivered, after she was forced to deliver him, gasping for air, blue, and never really opened his eyes. It's an image that's gonna be burned in her mind and the rest of their family's minds for the rest of their lives, and making the situation that much worse because they want control and they want to force you into their belief systems, which is based off of whatever it is that they were taught. I get the feeling they wouldn't want this done to them. One last part here, Jackson, before you jump in. Laura Bassett, she's the editor-in-chief of Jezebel, and she tweeted this out as also another aspect of being asked of the same representatives. She asked, State Rep Angie Nixon, who's a Democrat and a black woman, asked the sponsor of the 6-week ban, that's that same Jenna Persons Malika, as you saw her, she's white, if she was concerned that the bill would worsen health disparities for black women. And Persons Malika said, hell no. Black people, who are they? They're not worth anything in this country, especially black women. Oh my God, pregnant black women? What we're trying to do is talk about white babies. Well, again, the Dolberts are white. She doesn't care about them either.
Well, I can't speak for her, and I'm not going to, but I think it's important to realize it's rather astounding how many women have gotten abortions and will never tell anybody about it. And that's important to keep in mind because a lot of the people supporting these bills, maybe they were one of them. But also, interestingly enough, pretty much the only Republican opposition that you see to these are typically from women. Perhaps because some of them have gotten it, or they just understand that this is just many steps too far. But the important thing is that the reversal of Roe v. Wade was one of the biggest political mistakes of modern times. The Republican Party's biggest enemy is themselves, and their biggest mistake was reversing Roe v. Wade. They didn't, like Rep. Nancy Mace, she's been on the news, and a variety of other Republicans have been in the news saying, we need to find a middle ground. Roe v. Wade was the middle ground, and it happened half a century ago. There wasn't a need to do any type of looking backwards research, or we've been known this. But that's why there was no red wave in 2022. It wasn't because, Republicans are just so tired of Donald Trump. It's because state after state is going about passing these abortion bans. Ron DeSantis, who just signed for the 6-week abortion ban, that's not going to help him moving forward. Nebraska and South Carolina, they just voted down abortion bans, but the governor of Nebraska, he was so disappointed that the 6-week ban didn't pass, and they're going to give it another go, despite the fact that all the polling suggests that this is a losing strategy, which is what we close with, is that the Republican Party is only going to continue to become more authoritarian. because they're not just going to hit a 180. For one thing, process and procedure takes a long time with law and litigation. But also, human beings really don't work that way. This is what their organization does. And they're going to keep down this path. And the only way they can continue to win elections is if they get more authoritarian. So that's just what we're dealing with.
100%. You got to take away people's rights. If people aren't voting for you, you have to make sure they can't vote at all. And we've seen that happening for decades. That's definitely nothing new. They've just found new ways to do it, different ways to implement these strategies. Because every day that passes, you see more and more how much they actually despise this country and the people that they say they represent. They're just there for the power, the money, and the control. Let's keep it real. Let's take this first break, you guys. Yeah, it was a depressing first block, but actually a few of your comments when we come back. But outside of that, we've there's new rules also being passed around the state of Texas when it comes to some of these issues happening in our classrooms and these shootings that happen. And it's a new suggestion. It's just about as bad as the rest of them. We're gonna do that, but on the back end, I promise, we're gonna chill out. We're gonna have a little bit of fun on the back end of it, despite the child labor story we're gonna get to as well. But hang on, you guys, we'll be there. We'll be there soon. We'll be back in a couple minutes with your comments.
Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Dr. Rashad Richard. We got a lot happening today. But what do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable.
Rashad, great to be here. Congratulations on the new show. And I gotta let everybody know that Rashad and I go way back.
Here's the pattern that we see in all of these Karen stories. They think they own stuff they do not own. Now, where does that come from? I don't know, maybe slavery. Maybe they think they should still own black people.
This is what happens when Karens weaponize the police.
When you're used to privilege, equality seems like oppression.
It hits you in a certain way when someone is holding you against your will, treating you like you're a criminal and you're an innocent person. This is something that black people face no matter where they are.
A stronger black economy lends itself to a stronger, greater economy. Don't think it's exclusive of you, it's inclusive of you.
What's your beef with critical race theory?
It adds more fuel to the fire of the racist tendencies that we already have.
We have a generation of problem solvers that can remedy the problem if they are properly taught what the problem is.
You know who created redlining in this country? It was the white liberal.
I don't give a damn who created it. If it's a racist policy, Shelley, here's what I don't know. I don't know. See, there you go filibustering, brother. You're scared of this truth, but you're gonna get it, though.
Climate is changing fundamentally, extremely, and non-linearly. It's becoming worse now. It's not when the levees burst that is the problem. It's in the anticipation of that.
So I hope every human being is safe. And by human beings, I do not include multinational corporations, especially the ones that started climate change in the first place.
What we're currently doing right now in cutting emissions is clearly not enough. There will be ramifications to what Trump is doing. I don't want people to suffer, but I feel like there's gonna be a lot of suffering because we have an imbecile as our leader.
What's up, everybody? The document is changing on me because I need to get to y'all's comments. How you guys doing? Hey, let's find out really fast. TYT members Wolf Dragon Donna says, I love J&J Thursday. Jackson.
Yes,
of course.
Indeed.
We'll get that merch moving ASAP. Jonathan
100%.
also says, Jackson, baby shampoo for the next time Trump or someone in his cult starts crying like a baby.
Yep, we just gonna slap it at the camera. You know what I'm saying? Get some baby powder, just you know what I'm saying?
I'm hearing that the YouTube folks, is that what you guys said? Yep, YouTube folks are on fire today. Chris Palmer says nothing better than J&J in the wind down. Absolutely, we're headed back down to the back end of the weekend. Hope you guys enjoy as you go into the weekend. Pitchforks Dragon. Man, JR, depressing, upsetting show today. Damn. Now I know how it feels to be a Lakers fan in the playoffs. Dub Nation. Like I said before, you guys, whoever wins that this series, I'm actually content with. But right now, it's currently Lakers doing things to them. Brett Williams, guy, says, we're pro-choice. Nobody actually wants an abortion. Pro-life is anything but. It's pro-death. Same with pro-no common sense gun safety. Well, we've seen that. They don't care. That's not the point of this whole thing. Lastly, Aaron Noel DiCarlo, what's up? Thank you guys for the super chats. It says, yes, JR and Jackson, my two faves.
Yes, indeed.
We're gonna hold you to that proclamation as we go into more of these stories. Let's go.
Texas has a proposed bill to put bleeding stations in schools, and I think that's a really good idea. I think it's really important that children know where to go to bleed because we don't want blood everywhere, it stains. Also, the bill wants to teach children how to do battlefield trauma care, which is a fantastic life skill. This is gonna toughen our children up. We don't want snowflakes, so this is good. And it's gonna save our military so much money because these children, once they turn 18 and they join the military, they could skip basic training and just go right into war. We can really save on our education system as well because we won't even need to hire nurses anymore. Maybe the schools will even be able to afford guns for the teachers finally. But I think they're still gonna have to bargain bin the training on YouTube. I just can't find anything wrong with this bill. It's great.
There's Dara Faye there. I've mentioned her several times. She's now sarcastically responding to this there's an amendment to a previously passed law now that would allow children in schools, or actually, I guess to a degree, teach them some trauma training and how to stop bleeding. Also with these kits in class to limit the bleeding. Wonder why people be bleeding so much in schools, in American schools, where we have to prepare for it. Maybe it's the guns. Maybe it's that. So this is when you hear these folks talk about protecting the children all the time. This is what they're going towards. And this, by the way, here's the twist in this whole thing. If you guys are thinking, man, these Republicans, I can't believe they're going to this degree now. First they're talking about barricading doors and only having one window in the entire school. And now we're on to these. No, this was actually proposed by a Democrat. So Republicans in this state are not surprising some of the worst offenders. This is from a Variety article. Vanity Fair, I'm sorry. Some of the worst offenders when it comes to refusing to address the problem. Having rejected dozens of attempts at gun control while allowing people to carry guns without background checks, licenses, or training. Yeah, we know about that part. So there's the situation. In 2019, State Representative Barbara Gervin Hawkins, who is a Democrat, she said she had no other choice than to author this bill, which went into effect in 2020, that will require school districts to, quote, maintain and make available to school employees and volunteers these bleeding control stations. So this will go down to almost to third graders as well. That's 9, 8, and 9, 10, and not even 10-year-olds, 8 and 9-year-olds that would have to learn this type of training. Here's a little bit of the text of that bill. Down to the middle where you see that list, this is some of the things they want to make sure is there with that bleeding control station. Tourniquets approved for the use in battlefield trauma care by the Armed Forces of the United States. 8 and 9-year-olds. Chest seals, compression bandages, bleeding control bandages, space emergency blankets, latex-free gloves, markers, scissors, and instructional documents developed by the American College of Surgeons or the United States Department of Homeland Security, detailing a bunch of methods on how to prevent blood loss. So you send your children to school, you think they're gonna be learning about math, science, and history. Well, we're already off of that. But now the next thing is to teach them how to keep their best friend from dying in front of them if their chest is blown open by a school shooter. Sounds like American schools are learning some new things. This is inventive type of stuff. Crazy. So again, this is Barbara Gervin Hawkins. She posted originally about this when they passed it in 2020. And she goes through some of those same details and how she really wants this to at least help in some kind of way, considering they're doing absolutely nothing else. Now think about this, Jackson. We're talking about wartime type of training, battlefield training type of instruction given to children, and just in case they need to use it. But when someone says we need to stop allowing these weapons of war to be passed around, sold willy-nilly throughout our country, they go, those aren't weapons of war. What's the matter with you guys?
Crazy
you guys
talk.
Really hyperventilate every time. But then once those weapons of war hit someone, we need to implement things that are used to save people in wartime. Odd how that works.
Yeah, I mean, this is, like the type of training that it would expect if your country's being invaded or something and you have absolutely no choice. Two of the most obvious things. First and foremost, as you pointed out, this does nothing to stop someone from running up into school and taking the lives in the first place. And secondly, this just wouldn't work. You're not going to be able to train children into being able to handle something like this. I mean, you really can't train anybody to just be able to handle something like this, because the reality is that even if you're a little prepared, the situation isn't going to go down exactly how you train for it. You know what I mean? Like it's not really natural for people to just be in these types of situations unless it's life or death. And, obviously people shouldn't be running up in schools with the guns. But I mean, America is like a parody, because again, I keep saying it, because the longer I'm involved in politics, the more it's just like our problems are not complicated. They're not complicated. The people in power just don't give a damn. And the people fleecing their pockets are only focused on becoming more wealthy. So I mean, like, how is it that we can't move past these issues? Because nothing's being done about the guns. It's not more complicated than that. But got to keep this stuff flowing and screw the kids' lives. Just train them up.
We got to frame that line. Our problems are not complicated.
They're not.
They're just not. They're straightforward, and many of the folks who are against some of those solutions know that this problem is not complicated. They just don't want to do the things, those simple solutions we have to do to get by these things, because that would make them lose power, money, and respect of the people who pay them to do this type of stuff. But they've said that the woman who was sponsoring this is actually in favor of gun control, but this is her last resort to maybe save a life or two of a child that's bleeding out. By the way, kids can opt out. Oh, thank you. They can't opt out of watching their friends die, though, because that definitely hasn't changed. Let's go ahead and jump to this next story, you guys. We're going to get moving a little bit.
Well, 3 McDonald's restaurants in Louisville, Kentucky have been fined more than $200,000 for violating child labor laws. Department of Labor investigators found 2 10-year-olds working sometimes until 2 a.m. They reportedly were working the drive-through window and operating a deep fryer, which is prohibited for anyone under 16 years old. The company called the alleged violations deeply troubling.
The Department of Labor has found over 300 children were involved in these situations that violate these child labor laws in 62 locations in several states: Kentucky, Indiana, Maryland, and Ohio. And as you heard them point out there, 2 10-year-olds specifically in Kentucky working at this McDonald's. Imagine seeing that scene. You come back and you're like, yo, I actually didn't want onions on my burger. And then, some little child in the back goes, I don't care. As they burn themselves on the deep fryer.
Tells you to screw off.
My dad doesn't pay me enough for this. You're gonna find out that's true. Bauer Food LLC said in a statement that the 2 10-year-olds are children of a night manager. And they, quote, were not approved by franchisee organization management to be part of the restaurant. The children would occasionally work as late as 2 a.m. and they were never paid. Slave labor, back to the roots of our country. They prepared and distributed food orders, cleaned the store, worked at a drive-through window, and operated a register. That's what the Department of Labor said. And one of the kids is also allowed to operate that deep fryer, which is prohibited for kids under 16. Now, those same folks, these franchisee owners, because that night manager used a couple kids, they got to pay more than $200,000 in some of these fines. And then they're not very happy about it. And they're wondering why this whole stuff is happening. Maybe it's because these states, in many of these Republican-controlled states, keep lowering the threshold for allowing children to work. Because times are tough. And then some families might want to have their 10-year-old work for them. And they say this out loud without realizing how bad that makes them look. So as you guys remember before, there's some meat packing plants where these children work. Let's look at that picture of this child on the floor near meat grinders and cutters and all this type of stuff. That was also given. They slapped that big organization with a $1.5 million fine. They'll be fine. But still, it continues going downhill every time with these types of things. But you know what? When people bring up that this is part of our history, as I said, because we built this country off of enslaved labor. This is how we continue to keep this ball moving. We don't want anyone to learn about it because we would like to repeat these same types of problems. we saw it in Arkansas. I don't have to show Huckabee Sanders signing that stupid bill. But this is the way that they've approached this stuff. What's your thoughts here, Jackson?
Well, this reminds me of when George Bush was in some town hall or conference or something, and a woman was basically like, "Man, I'm working 2-3 jobs. I'm struggling. I'm tired." He was like, "That's a real American right there. We're hustling, putting in the extra effort, going the extra mile. You know what I'm saying? Going the extra mile to make ends meet for your family. That's a real American right there." But the people who headed these franchises did this on purpose. I mean, like, because again, like it was what was it, 300, and then like a couple of the companies own like 20 plus locations, and they had kids working in like all of them. So they were purposefully doing this because they know that they didn't have to pay them as much, and obviously you're just getting way too comfortable. And I think it was Oregon or Washington where they're trying to lower the limit for like lumber, cutting down trees to like 16 or 17 or something like that. So we're seeing, and then as you pointed out too, Sarah Huckabee Sanders with took the children hostage and said smile, and they still didn't do it. You know what I'm saying? They still didn't do it. But this is kind of becoming a trend. But we got to teach them up young, let the cream rise to the crop. That's what America's all about.
This is one of those things when it's this dual thoughts of this one type of subject. Remember when people had issues with minimum wage, or at least the wages that maybe fast food workers have to work, and they go, "Oh, those are just teenagers that work those jobs." A 40-something-year-old person who has to work it, or a 60-something-year-old person who has to work, those don't exist. These are build-up jobs for children. Is it applied to 10-year-olds that don't get paid for it? What are we teaching folks? What are we teaching children?
Hard work and character.
Yeah, character to help build for the folks who exploit them. But again, it's the party about the children. I think I'm beginning to see why they want to force more folks to have children so they can hurry up and put them on the planet. Let's go ahead and jump to this next story, Jackson. Oh man, I cannot wait for your responses. I feel like this is right up your alley about the response about real men in America.
All right, let's do it.
This is outrageous. Lots of fun apparently going on at the, I wanna make sure I get the right name of this thing. I was gonna call it the Real Men Conference. It's the Stronger Men Conference, but it's centered around being a good, strong Christian male. So keep that in mind as we look at, let me see, it's tons of American flags. There's an effing tank with somebody pops out at the top of it, firing a bunch of blank rounds. Oh, there's firework explosion as he drives over 4 cars very slowly in a very non-dramatic way. In my opinion, when I was a 7-year-old kid loving to see Bigfoot jump over cars, it was much more exciting than this. Maybe that's why I'm a real man now. By the way, this is what they're trying to push. This is a Christian church-like event. So we would assume this is tax exempt. You know who else they got to speak at this event? One of the most manly men in American politics. Watch.
Hey men, Josh Hawley here. I am so excited to be with you for Stronger 2023. I have loved going to this conference in years past. I'm super excited to be part of the speaker lineup this year. It is coming really quick. So get registered today and I'll see you there.
Hurry up and get registered. I'm gonna come and talk. I'm gonna say more nonsense things about what real men are. I'm gonna wear an extra medium-sized shirt and act like I'm showing off something that I've got as I tell you guys how to be real men. Here's Josh Hawley. Oh, no, I'm sorry. We're gonna get back to Josh Hawley's stupid speech. But actually before that, this is how they've built up the event. This is how they're making sure people really know to come out. See if you get excited by this.
Be ready to fight everything. Tell them I'm ready for anything.
Can God trust you to go in the battle, get wounded, and have the mentality and the mindset? I'm still gonna fight.
Ready for anything.
boy, I'm ready to go, man. We got bull riding, we got fighting, we got motorcycles. Everybody's grabbing their balls, man. It's craziness out here. This is supposed to excite people. If that didn't excite you, if your hands are not firmly around your testicles yet, Josh Hawley in his extra medium shirt will get you there. Watch that.
No matter how you feel, no matter how the last few months have gone for you or the last few years, your life is a life of influence. Your life is a life of significance, and God wants to use you to do something that he won't use anybody else for. He wants his strength, his power, his righteousness to flow through you and to change the world. That's what it means to be a mighty man of valor.
Oh man, mighty man of valor. He should know because he wrote this book. Let's look at the image of this book, the second version I can't wait to. But first, this is the basic. Maybe you have to pay more for the better one. This is called manhood. The masculine virtues America needs. And Josh Hawley knows all about it, especially when the other cover art for this is, for some reason, I guess that's a manly man, but he's fighting with his manly, strong horse. Bro, I think he just trained that horse because it doesn't look like it wants to be hanging around you. That's just my small observations for the book titles and those book art there. But you know what, Jackson, maybe this one just passes the end of April. It just happened. They're firing up for next year in the middle of April. We got to sign up, bro. We got to,
man. We got to, and we got to hold our nuts strong. You know what I'm saying? We got to squeeze them tighter. You know what I mean? But like, how can you not make fun of this? This is like a youth group church retreat for rural Oklahomans. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is like, it's just corny. You know what I mean? Like, and the whole ideal of it, you know, when you boil it down, like, what are we really talking about when you say like the masculine traits, like America's the men aren't men anymore? Like, what does that mean? Like, you could be a man if you'd like, you know, like no one's really stopping you. It's real. All they're really saying is, I don't feel powerful. That's all that really means, because when you delve into the virtues that they're saying, it's just like, I should feel like I'm in charge. But what do you have to do to feel like you're in charge? Shut everyone else down. You know what I'm saying? Women have gone too far, you know, women making their own money and telling me no. You know what I'm saying? Like, you feel me? Like, basically, like I have to try. I have to learn social skills, emotional intelligence, and empathy. And I have to actually maybe not be, you know, physically appalling or whatever it is. You feel me? It's just like, even if you're attractive, like a lot of these guys, it's just so interesting how so much of male political activity, especially right-wing political activity, comes from men just sucking with women. You know what I'm saying? Like, or how they end up there. Like, you end up in these red pill corners, and then the next thing you know, you're a super fan of Josh Hawley and Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis, and all the immigrants are bad, and you know what I mean? Like, it really is a tunnel. But it's really interesting, man. When men aren't good with women and they don't have the resolve to really go down the path of growth, man, bad things can come from it. But you know. In order to get past whatever issues these men would have with women or being around them or dating and all this, because it's a very accurate description of many of these folks, is to maybe learn to be open about maybe your shortcomings and change who you are and how you come off to folks. But if you're just rigid and think this is where I am because it should be and everyone should like me no matter how unappealing I am, maybe to personality, to how horrible of an individual you are to other folks, they should change and not you. Then you get mad at the rest of the world. And then these type of things reinforce that belief system. By the way, we did talk about this other conference that they had before on this, and I went to the FAQ page about some of these things, and it's always funny. One of these frequently asked questions is, can my son come with me? So that's what people are asking. Oh, I'm looking at the Manly conference and maybe they won't let me bring my son. Can you guess what the answer is? We highly recommend that you bring your son with you to the conference. Oh, really? Oh, that's good. I figured you would say no and not give you more money. One of my favorite ones here at the bottom, it says, can I gather a group of men at my house to watch the conference with me? Come on, bro. And the answer is, that's a great idea. Right. The question that we came up with to answer on our website, because men are clamoring to ask, so can I collect several men to watch the men's conference with me? Can we all take off our shirts and maybe sit really close to each other and rub each other while we watch the conference? I don't know. Do whatever the hell you want. I think the real question. I think the real question they was too ashamed and embarrassed was, can I come with my kid? Not can my kid come with me, but can I come with my kid?
Yeah.
Because again, it's like, how is this appealing? It's just like there's nothing stopping you from being a man or feeling like a man. And the ironic thing though is like, a lot of people, when they say that, they don't even know exactly the feeling they're looking for. They're just looking for self-esteem and confidence. Mm-hmm. That's really all they're looking for, because it's not that hard. It's not that big of a deal. You're just getting in your own way. There's not a crisis of masculinity in the country. Just got to step up to the plate.
As you said, what they think being a man is putting people beneath them and having some subservient folks that they can tell what to do no matter who it is. Yeah. You can spot these guys a mile away. Someone else you can spot a mile away because he's going about 60 to 70 miles an hour on a scooter. This down in Australia, I believe, right? This was down in Australia. Let's go check out this harrowing video. He wouldn't stop. Pull over, right. No, pull over. What are you doing? So as you saw down in Australia, this cops are chasing this guy on an e-scooter. And in this particular moment, that officer had to gun his motorcycle to catch back up with him. Yeah, that scooter was moving that fast. He originally started on the freeway, but they eventually caught up with him. As you saw, they had to do a couple of maneuvers just to jam him off the road. And more fighting ensued. Watch.
I jumped on the line, man. I jumped on the line. Stop, look at him. Stop. Stop on the ground. Stop. Well, I apologize. I'm late for work. I jumped on the line. I swear to you. Yeah, you got more than that on the line now, big fella. Mate, I'm sorry. Lay down. Lay down. Oh, man, I'm sorry.
In case you guys didn't know that this was happening in Australia, not in America, he wasn't shot. So that's why it wasn't in this country, because that would have been over a long time ago with all kinds of blood. But still, in case you guys need one more confirmation that this happened down under, let's look at the way that he tried to talk about why he was continually evading the cops, knowing that they're behind him and blasting around on that scooter. Watch.
I'm late for working. I've got a good job and I just don't want to up, man. Late for work, mate. You just started to stop for police. And then you crashed into my bike. I didn't mean to crash into your bike, sir. Why didn't you just stop? Because I don't want to. I'm late, man. And late, mate. You could have been done. I got a warning at work the other day, and I don't want to stuff it. Well, now you're under arrest. Under arrest? Yes. Failed to stop for police. So I'm sorry. We'll be going to the watch house. Mate, please, it's Christmas and that. Cool. I didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry, man.
As you can see, obviously, this is from December of last year. So it's Christmas, mate. I'm just trying to get to work. He's trying to get to work, bro. Look, we promote all this hard work ethics, and a man's trying to get to work, and you guys are jamming him up on the freeway. By the way, his job is that he's a mechanic. Really fast, his attorney, the defense attorney, Brandon Bodell, told the court that James Cole, who's this guy who was hemmed up here, brought the scooter because he had lost his driver's license as a result of drug driving. Excuse me. He said drug driving, even worse. My client's need for speed, for lack of a better word, was a genuine attempt to get to work. As I mentioned, he is a mechanic, and apparently another part of that whole problem with the drug driving, and now he's on a scooter, is that Cole later tested positive for methamphetamine in a roadside drug test, which actually, I gotta be honest, that's still impressive writing for being high on meth. I'm not sure how.
He was rather calm. His tolerance may be quite high, but yeah, meth will do it every time, man. You should stay away from that.
Or it could make you think 60 miles an hour on a scooter ain't all that. But sorry, go ahead.
No, but yeah, this whole thing was hilarious. The police were like, stop. He was just like, nah, I'm not gonna do that. You know, I'm a mechanic. I got to get back. I got to fix Santa's sleigh. You know what I'm saying? He's a timely man. He's a prompt man. But the funniest part was when he was. Did you hear like his voice inflection? He was like, okay.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, no, when they was pulling over, he was like, oh, no, y'all got to run that back. He was like,
It was at this point.
Like
shoved around.
Yeah, he was getting shoved around, but no, it was like a little kid, like he just pouting, like, okay, fine. But the most important thing that you pointed out is for this America would have been like, pow, stop. Oh, my bad, I shot first.
Immediately. Officer involved shooting. A gentleman was found shot on the side of the road, and officers discovered him after shooting him. Something along those lines.
Right.
That it happened and it went down that way. The fact that a scooter also, I noticed that the fact that scooter was going that fast, there's always modifications that happen. I remember either speaking with someone about this or I read about it. The modifications on these personal owned like e-scooters is crazy. Actually, it was someone I was speaking to, was a father at my kids' old school. There's like a community of folks that end up modifying these things and making them turn into speed vehicles.
That sounds incredibly fun.
Yo, until you fall off of it, because that's
you in LA.
Story too.
You in LA, because they don't got like the Lime scooters and stuff out here, because it's just too condensed. You know what I'm saying? There's not enough space. But out there, I was saying like hijack some Lime scooters or the Bird scooters, and somebody get on and be like, boom, like they just float off. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, no, that sounds like a good time under controlled situations.
Absolutely. Let's wrap up the show, you guys, with this last story. It's a bit of a discussion, a disagreement between a couple of lawmakers, and it's about the 10 Commandments, or religious freedom in our country. One knows what he's talking about, and the woman that's behind this apparently needs a lesson. Let's watch.
Don't let the law get in the way of loving your neighbor. Loving your neighbor is the most important law. It is the summation of all the law and all the prophets. I would submit to you that our neighbor also includes the Hindu student who sits in a classroom, the Buddhist student who sits in a classroom, and an atheist student who sits in a classroom. And my question to you is, does this bill truly love those students?
I'm going to go a different direction than I think you're trying to lead me.
I feel like I'm about to look like a fool. That's Candy Noble, and she's introduced this bill that would introduce the 10 Commandments into public schools. The 10 Commandments into all public schools. And as you can see, Representative James Talarico, who's a Democrat, was trying to get her to realize how exclusionary and biased and un-American this entire thing is. And I think she was picking up what he was putting down. This is part of that, the Texas Tribune pointed out that the public schools would then have to display these 10 Commandments under this bill that'll be passed. But Talarico, who's, by the way, points out that he is also a Christian, he's trying to show her why this is misguided. Let's listen.
I think these commandments would help with that classroom management need.
I want to make a comment, and thank you for answering my questions. I'll probably have more later. And I say this to you as a fellow Christian. Representative Noble, I know you're a devout Christian, and so am I. This bill, to me, is not only unconstitutional, it's not only un-American, I think it is also deeply un-Christian. And I say that because I believe this bill is idolatrous, I believe it is exclusionary, and I believe it is arrogant. And those three things, in my reading of the gospel, are diametrically opposed to the teachings of Jesus. My concern is, instead of bringing a bill that will feed the hungry, clothe the naked, heal the sick, we're instead mandating that people put up a poster.
It's almost like he understands what he believes in and how you can't use that to then change or force other people to believe in the same thing. They call this, Jackson, they call this religious freedom. Whenever you hear a politician talk about religious freedom and it's surrounding giving one particular religion every kind of advantage and authority over all else, or people who don't believe in any of them, you're not talking about religious freedom, you're talking about promoting Christianity.
Well, you know, again, like you pointed out, the religious freedom to be supreme in your Christian faith. You know what I'm saying? Like the religious freedom to, you got to read these 10 Commandments every day. You know what I'm saying? Like there's certain things that, definitely end up getting drilled into your head. I grew up in the church. It's definitely not a black and white thing. There's definitely value to spirituality. But, the thing at the end of the day is that religion is interpretation. And depending on who's preaching it, depending on who's giving the message, you're really just listening to what they think about it. So putting the 10 Commandments or anything else that's religious into a school, you're just putting it into someone's hands to interpret it however they may want to. But ultimately, these aren't important things that kids need to learn to get by, to survive in the world. So,
One of the things that they also said was the person who's in support of this said that this bill would remind students, so 10 Commandments listed in all these schools, would remind students all across Texas of the importance of the fundamental foundation of America.
Which that's pretty un-American, but it's their America. It's their America, though.
It's whatever it is that they want. And by the way, there's other foundational aspects of America, and it was enslaving people. But we don't teach that. So it's weird how we teach certain fundamental foundations of our country and not that one, because that's bad to the folks who want to put up the 10 Commandments in all these schools. Maybe the shootings will go down because someone who wants to shoot up a school will be, there's the 5th commandment. That's right. Let me change my mind. Whatever, bro. Thank you, Jackson, for joining us on the Jackson and Jackson Thursday. Congrats again. I look forward to showing up on the podcast at some point, you guys.
Indeed you will. Indeed you will. I'm putting the plan together and we're going to get going.
Oh, yeah, you guys look out for that. Thank you, Jackson. Thank you guys also for being here with me today. Up next, you got the Young Turks, Anna Kasparian, Cenk Uygur on a Thursday. Go check them out. We'll see you guys tomorrow.